Hello, I'm here to talk to you today about building a set of extreme Akas for a retrofit of the Tridarca Raider Conversion Classic 16 Retro Amas. If you already have a Baylog Boss system and you want to convert it to use the larger Amas for more speed, more stability, things like that, the first thing you have to do is think about upgrading your Akas to the extreme version. What's an extreme version? Well, an extreme Aka is basically the same size outer dimensions, so all of your fittings will work and you won't have to change things like that. But it has a triple wall thickness. Basically you end up with something like 3/16 of an inch wall thickness using two tubes, one tube inside the other. I'm going to show you how to set that up. This is using an Aka kit. So let's get busy. Here's a close-up of the 8 major pieces it's going to take to build this system. This is a 2-piece Aka system. There are 2 Akas represented here. These 4 tubes right here are the outer tubes. They have a 1 3/8 inch outer diameter. These 4 tubes here are the inner tubes. They slide inside the outer tubes and provide also the joint. So look at this. This is a close-up of one of the inner tubes. It has a thicker wall. Here's a close-up of the outer tubes. Notice that the wall is a little thinner. The combination is about 3/16 of an inch. 1/16 of an inch on the outer tubes, 2/16 of an inch on the inner tubes, and the system together is very strong. Now notice there are some different lengths here. All 8 pieces start at the same spot, and there are some different lengths. I'll show you how that gets used in a little bit. Some other pieces in the system. You have 4 end caps. There are 4 pieces to the 2 Aka set, and each of them has an end cap. These are kind of optional. You don't have to use them, but it does make a nice finished look to the product. We will be using 3M adhesives to hold the tubes together when they don't have any pins. When they're pinned, the pins will provide the strength, but you want the tubes sliding inside each other. You want them not to slide after you have formed the proper joint and so on. Right here we have 3M Fast Cure 4200. This is a very, very tough semi-permanent sealer. I use this on just about all the screws and bolts and stuff that I put onto a boat, because I have seen screws and bolts unscrew themselves out in the water. When that boat starts to vibrate, you'd be surprised what can come loose. The 4200 the bond can be broken, especially screws and bolts, but it's not going to break loose all by itself. You actually have to try to break it loose. The 5200, this stuff here, is considered a permanent bond. This stuff is very strong, and I don't use it an awfully lot. Now, in the boating industry, a lot of boats have a hull and a deck, and very often the joint between the hull and the deck has 3M 5200 as the bonding and sealing agent. And then of course they have screws or bolts or whatever every 6 or 8 inches, whatever the boat requires. But the 3M 5200 is used as a permanent bond that also seals out the water. So decide which one you want to use. I'm probably going to be using the 4200, but I'll decide that in a little bit. Now, fast cure, what does that mean? It means it cures in it cures in about 24 hours. It cures to a working hold after about an hour or so. But for a full bond, you need to wait 24 hours, and I would suggest that you always do that before you actually put the boat in the water and start using it. 5200 takes about 7 days to fully cure. But once it's cured, you're not going to get the stuff apart without an awfully lot of needless work. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is measure the male side of the joint. And for this task, you need some kind of Sharpie. I've got a Sharpie fine point and ultra fine point. On one side it's a fine point, on the other side it's an ultra fine point, and this is a really nice marking tool. I'm going to use the ultra fine side of this pen to mark the joint. So what you want to do, slide the inner tube through the joint, put your end cap on if you're going to use an end cap, make sure it's all fully seated, and then I want you to take your marking pen and scribe a circle around the inner tube. If I pull that up, I don't know if you can see this in the video, but I've got a nice solid line all around that tube. That line indicates to me I don't want my 3M 4200 or 5200 to go on this side of the joint. This has to be very clean in order to get a good joint. So now I can make sure that I don't put any 3M 4200 on this side of that line. All of it's got to come down here or on the other end. So that's very important. So I'm going to mark the first one. Look. Remember, it's not glued together yet. It's going to come apart. Make sure, tap it down, make sure it's where you want it, and then mark the second one. So right now, everything is marked, and we're good to go on to the next step.